All right, let's try it out. So, with this list, please try to determine if it's counted in GDP or not. US GDP. And again, for the AP, we're typically looking at things from the US perspective. So I will list all of these out. And if you are interested in playing along at home, you can pause the video now, figure it out, and then start the video again to hear the answers. So pause now. All right, the answers. So number one, new U.S. manufactured Goodyear tire sold to the General Motors Corporation. General Motors Corporation used to be large and powerful. Now it's not so much, but it's still around. So Goodyear tire is a component, an intermediate good of a car. So it's one of the various thousands of components that go into making a car. So for the GM Corporation, it would be an intermediate good and therefore not counted in GDP. It's used to make the final good, which is a car that General Motors produces. Number two, new U.S. manufactured Goodyear tire sold to Mr. Seidel's brother who lives in Texas. So if my brother were buying the tire for himself, he would be the final user of that tire because it would go on his car, and therefore we would count this in GDP. You'll notice this is the same item. It's a tire in both cases, but in one case it's being used as part of the production of a final good, and the other case it's being used as a final good in of itself. So in those cases, that's why there's a distinction. One is not counted, and then number two is counted. 3, child care services provided by a neighbor for the sister's kid. Typically, these are excluded from GDP. There are market services. It is a market service, so there are people who provide this service, and there is a market price for this. But in this case, the neighbor is not an established actor. They do not have established business, and typically they're probably doing it as a favor. Therefore, we would consider this non-market production and would not be counted in GDP. Number 4, a new Airbus A330. So Airbus is primarily owned and operated by French and German interests. They're based in Europe, and because they're based in Europe and this is produced in Europe, it's not counted in US GDP. Boeing is a US-owned corporation. It's based in Seattle with a major manufacturing facility in South Carolina, not too far from where I'm from. And in this case, because it's being produced in the United States, we would count a new Boeing in GDP. So Airbus, because it's being produced outside the United States, would not be counted, but a new Boeing would be counted. And number 6, new pickup truck manufactured in Mississippi by a Japanese firm, Toyota. This would definitely be counted in GDP. It's happening within the United States, in Mississippi, which is a US state, by a Japanese firm. So it doesn't matter that it's a Japanese firm, because it's still counted in US GDP. Thank you for playing.